I hope you do. We got many roadside cabins. They're even building new ones down here on the end, so obviously that business model still works. Now, if our winds were working just right, and they haven't been for the past week, you start picking up the aromas of Bubba's Barbecue right about this point here. Coming up on our right-hand side in just a moment. Now, they've been in operation in the same location for in excess of 45 years, so I do like to point the place out to everybody. They are kind of a staple in a lot of our local diets around here. For those of us who eat anyway. If you skip lunch and you catch a whiff of that smoker, we'll sure let you know about it. Up ahead of us around the corner on the left-hand side, we're going to pass underneath a tall white water tower. This water tower is quite visible from near the hilltop area here. So if you happen to be on a neighboring hilltop in the next day or so while visiting town, and you're trying to grasp a better known landscape here, this would serve as an excellent landmark to recognize. This water tower stands above the best western end of the Ozarks. It's the largest hotel property we have here in town. But that's not why I'm pointing it out to you. I'm pointing it out to you because this property used to be known as Camp Lake. Back when it was called Camp Lake, it wasn't the modern buildings we're about to pass here on the left. It was actually making little log cabins. When they decided to modernize the hotel, instead of pushing those log cabins over the hillside and making them into landfill, they sold them off and relocated them up ahead of us around a few corners, and I'll point them out when we pass them in a moment. There's that water tower there on the left. Very recognizable. It's Victorian style, or steampunk as younger crowd calls it these days. If you see that on a neighboring hilltop, you know it's standing right here on the side of Highway 62 at the junction of 62B, which we're turning onto right now. This is our historic loop here in town. It's also the red route of our trolley system. Now we have 4 color-coded routes to get around this area here on our trolley system. The red route's the one we follow for this entire tour. As we come around the corner here, out the right-hand side, you'll find the historical log cabin inn. These are the original cabins used to sit across the road over there. Moved over here, refurbished and looking mighty spiffy for 117 years of age. I hope I look that good at that age. Actually, my driver's keep reminding me I don't look that good now, so I probably shouldn't hold my breath. Logs was the choice material they used to construct these cabins back then, but that's not the only material you could use for making a roadside cabin. Now, as a local here, we often tease. You can dig a hole on this mountaintop, and in a week or so, flint rock will grow back in that hole. We actually tease about that, but that's pretty darn accurate how the ground really works up here. Anyway, coming up ahead of us in a moment, we're going to be passing the Rock Cottage Garden on the left. Now, they used the local flint rock to actually construct their buildings on their property. It probably makes them a bit cooler in the summertime. Now, as we pass by their third cabin, there's a dead tree on the back side of that cabin that's been repurposed into artwork. We have an annual chainsaw carving event in town, and artists come from all over the country to carve like mad to that weekend's events. Well, after the weekend's events are with, some of the artists hang around consignment jobs, and that's what's happened here. The artists put birds on the top of the tree and human faces around the trunk of the tree. Kind of have to look back at that. Now, it's not uncommon at all to find things like that around Carroll County and in Eureka Springs proper. You know, many of us over the years have recognized the benefit of these artists standing in front of us with running chainsaw in hand and decided not to make a horror film with them. Instead, let them carve on a dead tree and make a bit of art out of it. Coming around the corner here, out the right-hand side, you're going to find our local Band-Aid station. Actually, I hope it's the only time you get to see our hospital while you're in Eureka Springs. Across the street from the Rock Cottage Garden is another stone building over there. That building's actually made from flagstone. Flagstone travels an incredible distance to get here. He comes all the way from Paris. Yeah, Paris, Arkansas. It's about 145 miles south of us. I think France would be cost prohibitive here. What's unique about that building is it's 2 stories tall. Most flagstone structures will not exceed 1 story in height. See, it does become inherently unstable when you stand a flat rock up on its edge to make a wall out of it, so usually you won't see a taller than a 1 story. Here on the right, you see some of the examples of our yards in town. Now, a lot of them are terraced and not level, and some of them are relatively small. There are exceptions to all those rules. The next Victorian home on the same side of the street we're going to pass actually has a large enough and flat enough front yard. You could probably play a touch football game out in front. 22 years ago when I was giving this tour, I did have the opportunity to see the renovation of this beautiful Victorian structure here on the right. One thing that caught my attention, as they were painting it, we're coming by and they started painting the front porch. And after getting a week's worth of tours and coming by, I noticed them just finishing up, painting the front porch, but on the other side of the house. At that point, it really dawned on me what incredible work goes into maintaining these beautiful Victorian structures throughout town. I mean, you have to realize some of the places in town have more than 7 colors on their exterior, and for the most part, the homeowners sure do one fantastic job of making them all look very nice. Now, we're rolling on our way to the Crescent Hotel. It's kind of the halfway point of this tour. To reach the Crescent Hotel, we're going to run the road on the ridge top of this mountain here. The road surface underneath this is going to change names 7 times before we reach the hotel. See, in Eureka Springs, when you round a corner a lot of times, your road name changes on you, even without a sign indicating as such. And please don't trust GPS at 100%. It'll lead you astray too. Now, we do use distinguishing markers like other towns here to indicate the end of a road. A telephone pole is a good one to use. Many cities do that. Problem is, in Eureka Springs, we don't have perpendicular street crossings, so you don't know if it's a regular telephone pole or if it's a street marker. As we pass this next telephone pole on the left, we'll be on Ojo Street.
Oh, that house, the pink one.
Next, you might see the sign beyond the telephone pole that says 5 Ojo Inn. That's the name of the business there. That's also their address. The ironic thing, that's the only house on Ojo Street.
God, that detailing is gorgeous.
You see, as we pass the next telephone pole on the left, we'll be on Summit Street at that point. Ojo's real short. Now, we also have fractional addresses in town. Let me explain how they work. I'm going to use this house on the corner as an example. You'll see a 15 over the doorway of that building. There is a downstairs to that building. If they made the downstairs into a separated basement apartment, it would need its own address, so it would become a 15 and a half. Pretty logical. Now, if it's large enough for 2 apartments downstairs, you're going to get a 1/3 and a 2/3 address out of it. But if it's large enough for 3 apartments,